10, 9, ignition sequence start. All engines are running.
Liftoff, and the clock is starting.
The clock is operating. We're underway.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
And we spread our wings and glide right into episode 12 of Kerbalcast. Holy senior citizen, Batman.
Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb.
I'm your LMP, that's Lunar Module Pilot Biff Aldrin. With us, our CMP, Command Module Pilot
Nostromo.
Coming up in today's program, we'll update you on our ongoing progress within the game.
We have your letters in the crew report.
And we'll give you the latest Kerbal news in this week's mission briefing.
Another episode of
As the Kerbin Turns. And this week's But I Digress, 75 Years of Batman.
And we announce our winner from our contest in episode 10.
And also, I want to make a comment. We have to give Nostromo, we have to give him major props. He is sick. He's on death's door. He's drug himself over here. He's not feeling well. But you know what? Just for you, he said, I have to do this. I can't lay home in bed and be miserable. I have to do this podcast.
Well, it's that and being handcuffed to the chair. So
that's true.
Yeah,
I sent my goon squad to get you.
If my voice ever sounds a little off, it's because I'm just not feeling great today.
You sound completely normal.
Really?
To me.
Okay, to me I sound weird, but
yeah.
But then again, I've been hearing that my whole life. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, remember the voice you're hearing is not the same as the voice that we're hearing.
Oh yeah.
So yours is. I'm sure you're hearing it through a whole bunch of mucus and all kinds of other stuff. I said mucus.
Delicious mucus.
Delicious. Oh, that's terrible. Well, you want to start out and talk about our progress in the game. I went first last week, so it's your turn.
Just to give some preface on it, how many hours do you have now?
643.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And I think it was two episodes ago where I said 600. So
yeah, and I'm in like the despicable 50s. You know.
No, I would call it the respectable 50s.
The respectable 50s. Yeah,
you're making a good start.
I originally tried to throw out like 5 hours, per episode or more, and I just realized it's just sometimes it's hard to get some of those hours in because
you've got a lot going on.
This is my busy season.
Yeah,
like I'm working on a lot of projects right now, and
the ladies love Nostromo.
Oh yeah,
so he's got to balance his love interest.
Yeah, I gotta
because he's got them lined up.
From last time we were talking about first contract and messing around with the contracts in there. So that's mainly what I've been doing is I've been messing around with the contracts and fulfilling contracts. Some of them are more difficult than you'd think they would be. We talked about how like you would have to open a parachute, go in a certain speed at a certain height, on a certain day of the week or something. Yeah.
It's Fizbin.
Yeah. And so,
but only on a Thursday.
So working on the contracts it's been fun. I mean, in our last episode, we were talking about first contract, and we're saying that some of them seem a little odd. Mm-hmm. And I could say the ones where, if they're things I was going to do anyway, I was always cool with them. Mm-hmm. Some of the other ones, it's like I would have to do a mission just to do that contract. And it was kind of cool for some of them, and for some of them, it was just kind of like, I wasn't wild on it.
Right.
I
loved, you tossed out an idea last week, and I would love to see it implemented in the game. And I know if the folks at Squad are listening right now, they're going, oh, great, another expert.
Yeah.
You made the comment about situational contracts where, like, for example, if you get a Kerbal stranded in orbit or on a planet or something, a contract would pop up and go, okay, go rescue him.
Yeah, like if you had like so many items in orbit around Kerbin, it would be like, solve, like treating Kessler syndrome, like get the grabber claw and go pick him up.
I mean, I don't know. I guess that would be an if-then function or something.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
That would be so cool, though, if the contracts were situation-specific.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's like
not all of them, but that would be kind of a cool mechanic.
Like if you got one of your Kerbals, like he's just like out floating in space.
Can I do my impression of the programmers at Squad right now?
Go ahead.
Shut up! Shut up!
If you had one of them floating out there,
got our hands full as it is.
The contract would be if you didn't fulfill it, you would lose a massive amount of reputation because you'd be the guys who left a guy just stranded.
Yeah.
Or
You'd be a pariah.
Yeah.
You'd have a scarlet letter A on your on your spacesuit.
so yeah, I've been
That was
working
not
on
a Star
those.
Trek reference, by the way.
I know that one.
Okay. I bet you do.
Yeah. So I'd been
Wow, we have got a serious case of the sillies. Have you noticed that?
yeah. Do
Or maybe it's just me. Maybe
you
I have.
want me to just give another run at it, just the whole thing?
No, I think you know what it is. I think you've been horsing down some cough syrup.
Yeah.
It's making you lightheaded.
Yeah, I've just been I've been hitting the quill,
And you've been popping the
Yeah,
antihistamines.
been hitting the tussin.
tussling with the tussin.
There's actually a song called "The Tussin," and it's about getting.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it's MC Chris. He's like a nerd rapper. He raps about nerd stuff, and one of them is getting drunk off Robitussin.
Tussling with the tussin.
Yeah. So
Okay. Well, I'm sorry I interrupted you. Go ahead. Your progress.
So yeah, doing all the contracts and finding some of the all the exploration ones have been fun. Like the contract for going to the Mun.
Right.
I'd already been to the Mun, but now I want to try to do it with the limited resources and the parts that I have now. It's weird because I'll start unlocking doing contracts, and then I'll buy parts. And sometimes if I already have the part from the contract, it's not going to be highlighted in blue as like a gift part in order to do the contract.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to like write down the name and then go look and like, cause like Roku Max X478G or something. I'm like, I don't know.
Somebody made I read that somewhere. Somebody made the comment that sometimes you go to test a part and you load the wrong part.
Yeah.
And you keep trying to test it and you're going, why isn't it testing?
Yeah. Well, why isn't it working? Yeah. So I kind of wish you could access maybe you can. I just hadn't
There
seen
needs
it.
to be a for dummies mode.
Well, just the ability to access your contracts, like just bring up a window of your contracts
Right.
in the building phase,
Mm-hmm.
like in vehicle assembly. So I could see it's like, okay, it's this part, or just provide a picture,
Yeah.
because they look different. Most of them look different enough that I could. be like,
I
okay.
vote flashing arrows.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you're in the vehicle assembly, just have flashing yellow arrows.
I mean, really, they could just put a little icon.
Yeah.
Like whenever you're going through the vehicle assembly tabs,
Yeah.
and they have the parts, they just put a little
Be like this part, dummy.
Well, yeah, yeah, a little asterisk that would say like this is a mission sensitive part,
Right.
where you could build stuff with it normally for other contracts, but that there's some contract involving it or something, because otherwise, like I'd have to back out, look at my contracts like 76G, and then go back and like, was it 76 or was it 77?
Yeah, I did that a couple of
And
times.
I'm like, oh, okay, no, it says. So the exploration ones have been fun. Like get science from this area. I think having precursor knowledge from playing before the update has kind of bit me a little bit, because it's like get and transmit some science from outer space around Kerbin. Well, I had already done that. Like
Right.
from all my other contracts, I already loaded them up with goo canisters and stuff. So I had to do other things until I got the Science Junior, and then went up with the Science Junior and waited until I had that contract open, and then got the stuff. So you kind of have to play at the pace of the contracts. If you try to do any other stuff ahead of time, it can make doing some of the contracts difficult. Because if I had already gone up with the Science Junior and like a lot of the other science gear and measured those out before I did that contract,
and then have to do it again.
yeah, I don't know I guess I would have had to get something that just didn't yield any science but still brought it back. But I don't know. And the reward for it was 1 science. So it was like,
Who cares?
yeah. There was that story not too long ago where I was like 1 science away from getting what I needed.
Yeah.
And I was like, I had to like drive, like roll around Kerbin. So yeah, I've been messing with those. Did you see the one? You've probably done it. You've probably done a good handful of contracts. Did you see the one with that tiny booster? I don't remember what it's called, but it was like max thrust 30, and it was smaller than any other booster I had seen.
I don't think I saw that one.
Okay, it was this tiny little booster, and those like max thrust 50. This is how we refer to all of them.
Yeah.
Those little squatty max thrust 50.
Right.
It was that same shape, except it was half the size. So you would put it on the bottom. Like I attached it to the bottom of a
Oh, I know
canister.
I know the one you're talking about. Yeah, they're the really tiny engines,
Yeah.
and they only have 30 thrust.
I attached it to the bottom of the canister, and I couldn't see it. So I had to I'd change my view, and I'd be like, oh. I swear, it would be like if it was medieval times, and you were like raising like battle horses or
Right.
something, and like Clydesdales or something, and you see a Shetland
Battletoads.
Yeah, you see a Shetland pony for the first time, and you're like, what is that?
What is that thing?
Like it's something made for transport, but it's like the smallest, most
Right.
weird version possible. You're like, what? You know?
No, the little 30 thrust engine.
Uh-huh.
Those things are the most frustrating when you're trying to go into orbit, and you've
Wait, you tried to go into orbit with that?
well trying to conserve fuel.
Uh-huh.
And this was a while back, but I would put the little 30 thrust engines in the upper stage, thinking that by the time I got to that stage, I would already be in orbit.
Yeah, and it doesn't take much.
And
so.
and it turns out that I underestimated what I needed.
Oh, yeah.
And so here I am, still fairly low in the atmosphere, burning that little 30 engine as hard as I
Like,
can.
I think I can.
Yeah, it's like I think I can, and no, I can't. I know I can't. Those are the ones we always got. I'm going to go find the biggest honking engine.
Yeah. I'll just slap 30 more of these on there.
Now, I guess the 30, if you're going to like Minmus or something,
Yeah.
which has just almost no gravity,
Uh-huh.
it's like you take a step and float away.
You know, I have a friend who's trying to make a hovercraft.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if he's tried using those little 30 thrust
That'd be
thrusters.
interesting.
Yeah.
That would
So,
be real interesting.
Yeah, he's gotten pretty far in it. Like he's, made it to where it can sort of just kind of stay afloat and it has the air intake and stuff, so it doesn't really consume a lot of fuel.
He must have it really well balanced, because that to me would be easy to flip over.
Yeah, right now what he's trying to figure out is how to propel it, because it'll float, but he needs to propel it.
Right.
So we were experimenting, I was just like, well, try RCS, and we're trying RCS and like loading it full of RCS, but
I wonder, does it hover very far off the ground?
it can. It
Because I was just wondering if maybe you like dip the nose and
Yeah.
that would push it forward.
That's what he had been doing, but he was looking for a way for it to stay level,
Right.
and to have something propel it, and without any mods involved yet.
Right.
So I was like, maybe just like pack one end of it
Yeah.
full of RCS.
That's where you have to start looking out for gopher holes.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like derailed by a gopher hole.
So yeah, I've mainly been doing the contracts and basically trying to find what all I can do. I'm trying to do all the contracts I can before I buy new stages of science.
Right.
Because that was something that would trip me up. Because if they gave me a part to do an experiment with and it was highlighted in blue, I knew I was going to use it. But if I already own it, they don't highlight it in blue, so I would have to find it, and that it started getting really annoying trying to like memorize the names of everything and then go find it, bring it over, and use the wrong name. So I basically spent the money on a rocket that didn't do anything, revert it, do it all over again. So I don't know. I've mainly just been working on the contracts. So I think I may make a science mode one where I can, if I ever just get a wild urge to do something crazy, I'll do it in the science area.
Right.
Because I'm still not drawn into sandbox mode, but science mode, I'll be able to, go after goals, but I'll be able to have a little bit more purchasing freedom.
You would think that the way I like to play the game that I would be in sandbox mode, but I'm not, because there's no reward.
Yeah.
It's all possibility and no reward.
Well, one of the cool things, it's kind of like the fishing story.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, it was this many pounds and this long.
Yeah.
I guess that could be a baby story too.
Yeah.
But
I love going and getting science.
yeah, like you're like, oh, I got 700 science. It
Yeah.
was crazy. Or I got this much science, Or yeah, it's like just trying to see how much you can collect in one run is really cool.
And also, it kind of narrows down which parts are essential, because when you don't have all of the parts unlocked, the parts that you go for tells you a lot about your play style.
Yeah.
Because, like, for example, very early on, I go for decouplers, and I go for docking ports, and I go for RCS. And I mean, there's certain pieces that every time I restart what is now science mode, there are certain parts that I immediately try to unlock.
Yeah, to take precedence over other parts.
Yeah.
Whenever I originally started, I was trying to evenly, like, I would get, a whole column of
Yeah.
unlocks, and I get the next column, and then I realized, like, I'm getting a bunch of aerodynamic parts I don't
Yeah.
need,
Yeah.
So if I was going for space planes, maybe I'd be going that direction,
Right.
but
Yeah, a lot of times my tech tree is like, there's like one branch where everything is unlocked
Yeah,
on it,
yeah.
and then, there's nothing under it.
it's like, have you discovered wings yet? No.
No.
But we discovered how much fuel we can pack into this giant canister.
Right.
So
Exactly.
what's your progress been?
My progress, and I have to, you get all the blame for my progress this week.
Uh-oh.
You mentioned last week that you have a friend who uses the grabber to go and retrieve debris.
Uh-huh.
That's pretty much all I've been doing.
Oh, have you been pollution minded?
Well, see, I had never messed with the grabber before because I've yet to do an asteroid mission.
Yeah.
So I never really had a need for the grabber. Grab on, grab off the grabber. I had never used the grabber before.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned that, and I immediately was like, oh, I got a bunch of debris in orbit. So I immediately built a craft that had a little grabber right on the nose cone. And that's all I've been doing is going around, getting little pieces of debris, deorbit, let it go, and then reorbit my craft and let the debris fall to Kerbin.
With the same craft.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Yeah. What I do is, I would retro burn until I was into a re-entry curve,
and then just drop it.
and then I would let it go.
So you're
and then,
dropping these massive debris bombs
exactly
all over the surface.
Exactly. Well, there's nothing on the surface anyway.
Has anything survived to be retrieved?
Now remember, I'm not in career mode,
Oh, okay. So yeah, it doesn't
so
matter.
I'm just bringing stuff down and letting it
Yeah.
burn up.
It-
But that's I've been doing that, and then the other thing, and I haven't had any success with it, and quite frankly, I don't think I'm gonna have any success with it. But I had mentioned before that I wanted really stable docking clamps
yeah.
so that I could build something in orbit.
Yeah.
Well, now that I'm messing around with the grabber, I thought, I wonder if I could use the grabber kind of as a substitute clamp.
Oh, okay.
So far, I haven't had much luck, and I don't think I'm going to, because the ability to build something symmetrical in orbit is going to be very difficult.
Yeah.
So I don't think I'm going to be able to do it, but it's something I'm at least just kind of messing around with. Like, can I use grabbers as stable docking ports?
Yeah. Just use it like without using any mods or anything. So,
go ahead.
how stable? Like once the grabber grabs something, does it hold it steady? Or
Very
does it...
as long as you have it locked, there's a pivot on there that you
Okay.
can lock or unlock.
So there isn't
now,
like a chain sway.
I have read that if you have something with a lot of mass, you might get some sway. That's why I'm saying is I'm in the process now of I just sent up 2 different ships
Yeah.
with grabbers, and I was working on rendezvousing the 2, and I was going to connect them and see kind of what happened. I'm not there yet. I kind of, where you get to that point where it's like, okay, if I stop right now, I'll get, 10 minutes of sleep.
Yeah.
So that's where I F5'd, it was like, okay, they're very close to each other, but I really need to go to bed. So that's where I left it. I was going to tell you, by the way, you asked a question last week, and I have an answer for you.
Okay.
If you do an EVA with a jetpack, and get back in the cabin, it does refill your jetpack.
Oh, okay.
Now, I did not check this, but I assume that is limited by the amount of monopropellant that you have in your capsule.
Oh, so
I
it-
suspect
yeah, you didn't-
I suspect you're loading up from your capsule, so it's
Yeah.
not like infinite
Yeah.
EVA.
Yeah, the way to check that, you would have had to check your propellant level.
Which
get
I
out.
which I didn't do. I kept checking the level of the backpack, and then today I was thinking about it, and I thought,
Maybe he just refuels it from the propellant.
and I thought, I bet that's what that is, because if not, I mean, technically that is unlimited
Yeah.
EVA, RCS, or I guess EVA in this instance.
Yeah.
It's unlimited jetpack fuel. I suspect it's coming out of your command pod.
Well, so then you could just have him get out and push.
That's right.
Yeah. It's like, oh, super tanker's out. All right, well, we got to push it.
Push. But anyway, so I have answered your question.
Okay.
So I'm gonna next time I get into the game, I'm gonna look and see what the monopropellant level is in the capsule itself, because I suspect that whatever I gain in my jetpack is probably going to come down. That's in the command module.
Yeah.
So anyway, that would be my estimate.
Yeah.
I was messing around. I was doing a deorbit, and I realized that I was over mission control. You know, the VA building and everything.
Yeah, yeah.
And so when I brought it down, I did some finessing, and I managed to actually land my capsule on the roof of one of the assembly buildings.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and it was like he got out and he was running around the roof, and I left him up there, and I went to the Space Center, and I looked to see if I could see him up on the roof, and he's not.
Yeah.
You know, the game doesn't show him there if you leave him. Mm-hmm. But I mean, he's still there. You still retrieve him from there,
Yeah.
but you just can't see him. But I thought that would be so cool if I could go to like the overhead.
Yeah, where you
Space
select the
interview,
building,
and you
he's
could
just
see like he's just standing there on the
with
roof.
a little flag and stuff. There's I saw something, I think it was from Reddit, where somebody made, it was basically like that, like quad thruster, you know, the piece with and it was that, which was like half of the structure, and then just a little command pod, and they just like boost the thing up, and then like turn it like 90 degrees and boost it again, and then it starts to fly over the tallest building, and then they hit the parachutes, and it like amps the drag and just like stops the thing, and they just landed right on there.
So you're chugging along in career mode.
Yeah. I'm kind of just going through the contracts now. I think I may, I like to do at least one really cool thing, before I come and give another progress report, you know, because it's like, I've just been rolling the command pod around Kerbin. It's like, which actually, if you get a command pod and then you get a girder and put it on top of the command pod and then get a second command pod and turn it upside down and attach it to that girder, it doesn't.
It's like two wheels and an axle.
Yeah. So you could roll that thing around and you can get two EVAs and two surface samples. And you didn't have to spend much money, and you can recover it all, and you can get roll. You can roll, and you make it to the mountain.
The way people play this game is just hilarious. I would never have thought of that in a million years.
Yeah, I thought about.
I can see exactly what you're talking about.
I thought about putting those Sepratron engines on the middle girder, but putting them in like a rotation.
Right.
So it would just, you'd hit it and that thing would just take off. It would explode. I'm doing it. No, I'm doing that tonight. I want to see it.
Oh boy.
Yeah. It'll be like whenever I made that file to see how bad you could do in career mode, and I was basically just covering boosters with as many command pods as I could. It's like,
what did you call? You called that unbelievably awful?
Unforgivably awful.
Yeah, that was it.
And then I was like making the the Kerbal party bus where like everybody hops on and the thing just explodes.
Well, in the podcast, in last week's episode of our podcast, we talked about the update. And we gave our opinion. We talked about some of the things that we liked, and we talked about some of the things that we didn't like. We asked for our listeners to chime in and kind of tell us what they thought based on what we said. And we actually got quite a few letters. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a real quick break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to have your letters. It's this week's Crew Report. So we'll see you in just a minute. Okay, we're back. You ready for some letters?
Yeah, let's do the crew report.
Okay, time for our crew report. You go first.
I got some tweets from Declarations on Twitter. Favorite thing about the new update? Yay, 64-bit. The big thing for me, being able to turn off reversions, quick saves, and crew respawn.
Woohoo!
Makes the money more of a factor. Next is PWB. This is regarding first contract.
Okay.
Not done yet, but I was amused by testing the main sail while splashdown.
I also have a tweet regards first contract. This is from Gas Doc Matt. He says that his favorite contract is rescuing orbiting Kerbals. How about, and then he says, how about craft or satellite retrieval missions once you have the grabber?
Oh. We asked what contract has been your favorite so far. Jason Crocker says his favorites are the ones about exploration, but I don't like so much the parts test. I actually just said that. Yeah, I totally agree. I think in the beginning, the BART tests are fun, but eventually when you start wanting to do the exploration stuff, because you now know how most of the parts work.
It's hard for me to be non-biased on that, because as far into the game as I am, I'm pretty familiar with the parts.
Yeah, you know how the parts work.
So it's kind of like, okay.
Now, using a decoupler, like in the water and stuff, I mean, those things are kind of fun, because you're just like, okay.
Yeah, why not?
Sure.
We have another tweet. This is from Cambo. And on Twitter, he says, my favorite rescue was when I forgot to make space on my module for my Kerbal I spent 4 hours real time trying to drop someone off at a space station.
Hey guys, it's Japster again. I was playing .24 and I was attempting a Mun landing with a craft with very poor thrust to weight ratio. I time warped too fast. I do that all the time.
Oh yeah.
And ended up around 4 kilometers above the surface, traveling at 500 meters per second. My lander didn't slow down fast enough, and about 10 seconds before impact, the fuel ran out. I panicked because I told myself I'd EVA Jeb on impact to save him, so I didn't know whether to stage or EVA. I hit the ground hard. Jeb died, and I reverted.
That honestly, most of the stories I could tell in the game would end with those two words.
Yeah.
With those two sentences.
Jeb
died, and I reverted. Yeah, I think didn't he pull off the last second jump out of the?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he was trying to repeat that magic.
Yeah.
And it didn't work out.
Didn't happen.
Yeah.
Okay, this is an email. This is from Greg Vasecki. He says, "Hey there. I have a few thoughts on the new career mode. While I agree that Reputation does not do anything yet, Squad has mentioned in the past that they want to make the 3 currencies interchangeable. I feel the systems implemented work well and do what they're supposed to. The multi-part missions like Explore the Mun or Ike, etc., have staged rewards as you get a few thousand funds for making orbit around the moon. All that being said, the contracts could definitely use some filling out."
Jason Schley writes in with more Kerbal Bites. Attach this. If you want to make large, oversized spaceships, go for the large docking ports. The larger, the better for stability. And if that's not enough, go for multiple docking ports connected simultaneously. And you thought docking was easy in the first place.
Yeah.
And if that's not enough, one mod you can use is Kerbal Attachment System.
There have been a lot of
endorsements for that.
Endorsements for Kerbal Attachment System. Okay, our next email is from Ironsides, and this is the first time he's written to us. He said, "Hi guys, I work outdoors all day and listen to podcasts a lot, and yours is one of my favorites." Aw. "I consider myself just like you, Biff, an average level player. I have about 865 hours on KSP. So your 643 is puny compared to mine. Bow down before my greatness." He didn't write that.
Oh.
Okay. Although
he could have, though.
He could have.
Yeah.
And you know what? I would have bowed down before his greatness.
Hey,
with 865 hours in the game, you'd think I would have done it all, but I haven't even been to half the places you can go in the Kerbalverse. In episodes 10 and 11, you talk about building your epic space cruiser and the wobble problems. There are a few options in the form of mods. Number 1 is a simple 1-part mod called Docking Strut. Number 2 is called Quantum Struts, which uses energy beams as the connection. Number 3 is the ever-popular Kerbal Attachment System.
There we go.
You need to EVA to do the connections if realism is your thing. It would truly make my day if you put any of this email into your podcast. And then he closes. I love this sentence. "May you always have a star to steer by and enough fuel to get you home." Do you know how Vulcans have live long and prosper? I think Kerbalers, that needs to be our greeting. And you know what? And you know how the Vulcans do the V sign with their fingers? I think what we could do is put your thumb and forefinger together in a circle.
Like make the OK symbol?
Yeah, the OK.
Yeah. We're okay.
Yeah, you thought it was going to be something else, didn't you? Yeah, I know. But it would be like, we could do our pointy ears and we could say, "May you always have a star to steer by." And then we could do this.
Oh.
I think the visual kind of loses something on a podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Do you have another letter?
From Jaco Dinar. "On career mode, my impression by now is it has made me build rockets that I would not have built in any other case. But most of them I would not call rockets because they look strange with all those test XYZ things on there." I saw, I think it was Max Maps that did the picture. He put a picture on his Twitter, and it was like, test all the parts. And it was a rocket with one of every part on it. Just like one. And I don't even know how the thing would have flown. But there's one of everything.
Didn't he call that the woolly booger?
It's like whenever you were getting soda as a kid, and you're
Yeah.
like, I want the suicide. And it's like a little bit of every soda. And you had to pretend you liked it because your mom wouldn't let you pour it out.
And then you went into a sugar coma and forgot all about it.
Reputation is, as far as I know, not doing anything by now, except with some mods which lets you have running expenses which are lower on good reputation and higher on low rep. I could see that being good, but also like you could get in a death spiral.
Right.
To where it's like once things start going bad, they don't get any better. And I try to get out of that whenever I play video games.
If it's not one thing, it's another.
The contracts you get are influenced by your progress in the game and in the tech tree, but it will be useful in a future update. Also, in my opinion, the advances in payouts are way too high if you do 2, 3, or even more contracts on one flight. There should be either something like split payouts and getting there, which is paid only one time for all contracts, which would need to bind contracts somehow to a ship, and the doing the actual contract, like testing, landing, etc., where you get money for each of them. Or the other possibility would be have more contracts in different types with smaller payouts on each contract.
All right. Next letter is from John Madsen. And he says, I think perhaps the best quick tweak they could do with the contracts is to add a picture of the part into the contract, at least when you're first taking it on. That's what you were talking about.
Yeah.
Do you remember? He says that he would like to see a picture of it. It would make it easier to pick the right part rather than have to go back and double check the part numbers on the contract to the part numbers in the build stage. I spent a couple launches before I realized that the Separatron was the mini booster rather than the stack decoupler.
Yeah.
I know this is my fault, but still. You remember earlier I said I heard that somewhere? That's where I heard it, was the letter.
Yeah, because I had that problem. I was like, Separatron. I was like, okay, I just didn't remember what it was called. So I was like, that's probably decoupler. And I looked through all the decouplers, like, no. And then you have to look through every part to find which thing it is. I kind of wish you'd look at the contract and it would have a little picture of whatever the thing was.
I still say flashing arrows.
Yeah, flashing arrows.
Like neon flashing arrows. And you know what? A buzzing sound, a really irritating buzzing sound.
And some guide penguins.
Yeah.
Some little penguins just like walk toward it.
And make it really loud.
Yeah.
Like it will completely ignore the volume settings on your computer. So like when you're playing at 3 a.m. and your significant other is trying to sleep.
Yeah. Like nobody gets peace.
Okay, let's see. Continuing. This is John Madsen still. Overall, I am enjoying having the contracts. I, for one, have never played sandbox mode and only had done the classic career. I liked it since it provided incentive for me to go out and collect science. I do agree that some missions seem somewhat of a grind, and I share the fear of not wanting to build random ships for fear of wasting all my funds. I think Biff's reaction is interesting. You are clearly attached to the play experience you've had, whereas newer players may not have the same fear. I agree with the sentiment that they should keep all 3 modes in the game. Depending on how much of a pain budgets get to be, I could see the classic career/science mode being my favorite, also my first, so perhaps I'm equally attached to the original experience. And we have one more letter.
Yeah, this is from Jay Brady. First off, I've found your podcast, and I'm loving it.
Marsha.
He said,
it's not Jan Brady.
No.
Jay Brady, okay.
On episode 11, you talked a lot about how you dislike the funding aspect of First Contract. I gotta say, career mode is the only way I'm going to play the game anymore. I really like KSP, but I also really don't like sandbox-type games, Minecraft, stuff like that. They get kind of boring. I was so excited when I first downloaded KSP, but as soon as I finished the tech tree, I got bored. What made it boring for me was exactly what you said you liked about the game, the freedom to do anything. I've tried to get into sandbox-type games before, but without goals and direction, I lose interest too easily. The contracts in career mode give me a goal to work toward, while the funds in it make it challenging for me again. You want me to test KS-25X4 on Minimus? Okay.
Sure, why not?
Well, now I've got to figure out how to make a rocket big enough to haul that thing to Minimus while not burning up all my cash. That is exactly what I was looking for when I first bought KSP, and I am so glad the devs are making it happen.
You know, that is an interesting dynamic with sandbox games because different players react to it differently. For some people, the freedom to do everything takes away the incentive to do anything.
Yeah, that's why I don't play games like Grand Theft Auto or anything. They're like, oh, go do whatever you want. I was like, well, I don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
Like, show me something to do, and like, hey, I'm going to go try and do that. You know?
Oh, I'm with Grand Theft Auto. I'm the worst player because all I do is steal cars and see how long I can run from the police.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff I do. Or I steal helicopters and shoot things. Or it's like I don't ever play the story missions because I'm so busy just going, okay, how long can I do this?
Yeah. And I'll hit that with Minecraft. Like, I've said before, the only part of Minecraft that I ever really liked was either discovering something new or the first few in-game days where you're trying to survive.
Right.
Like, once you have all your food and you have a farm set up and everything, and then there's nothing like pertinent, like you can do whatever you want, there's nothing I want to do.
Right.
Because I already have all my resources and everything taken care of.
Well, you remember I told you that with some games, especially the open world kind of games, you get into a situation where you have built up this gigantic, you've got farms and buildings, and I mean, you've got this huge infrastructure, and you get to a point where you're not playing for fun anymore. You're simply trying to maintain the infrastructure.
You're like, I got to go do my harvest.
Yeah. And Civilization, which I love Civilization. I love the games. I love Civ 5. Civ 4 was my first, but I love Civ 5. Late in the game, I have found that if you walk away from it and then come back later, sometimes you've got so many pieces on the board. It's hard to keep it straight.
Yeah.
It's like one of those 3 a.m., well, I need to get some sleep. And so then you come back to it the next day and it's, oh yeah, I've got like this whole fleet over here. And sometimes the only way you remember is when you get a notification like your fleet was destroyed. And like, damn it.
Oh no, not that fleet I forgot about.
Not that fleet. They were critical until I remembered them.
Yeah.
So is that it? Are we out of letters?
I think we're out of letters.
Okay. So we're out of letters. So what we're going to do, we're going to take another break, and then we're going to come back, and we'll have this week's mission briefing, which is a look at the news. All right, we're back, and it's time now for mission briefing. It's the latest news from Kerbal, and Nos has our first story. What do you have for us?
Username Arsenide has updated the Extra Contracts mod. It is now known as Fine Print. Features include 5 new contract types, doubling the initial amount included with Kerbal Space Program 0.24. Many contracts have side objectives that may or may not be attached, increasing variety. And this is just a couple of the new kinds of contracts they have. Find the link in the KSP forums or at beta.kerbalstuff.com.
And moving on, Max Maps, who is with Squad, did a Reddit AMA this week, and that is Ask Me Anything. And we have some of the highlights from the Q&A. Nos is going to read the questions, and then I'm going to read the answers.
DKMDLB. Is a rework of the aerodynamic system still planned?
Max Map said aerodynamics needs a lot of thought before we do any work on it.
Does KSP make enough money to pay for its own development?
Max Maps. We can't discuss sales for a multitude of reasons, but you have no reasons to worry about us ending development due to a lack of funds.
Kidigo. Is KSP in perpetual beta, or is an actual 1.0 release planned for the relatively near future, 1 to 3 years?
Max Maps. The game has an end goal we're working towards every day. We just have to be sure we're the best game we can be when the day to leave early access comes.
Again, Court DB. Will Kerbets be added to the game? Considering how awesome KSP is as a teaching tool, it would be great to have female Kerbals in the game to show girls they can aspire to orbit the Earth.
Max Maps. We are actively working on Gerbils. That's a studio pet name, not an actual name. They will take some time. It's a decent bit of work, and we have to get them right. We may be just a small indie studio, but we feel that gaming in general should no longer treat women as an afterthought, even if it's extra work. And that's just a few of the many questions and answers that were posted on Reddit. You can go to the Reddit Games subreddit, and you can find a link to this. You can also get it off of Kerbal Space Program. And I haven't checked, but I wouldn't be surprised if Kerbal Academy has it as well.
Yeah, I think we also have it linked in our Twitter.
Yeah, we do. That's a good plug. I didn't even think of that. Yeah, you can also look at our Twitter feed, and you can find a link there as well. Speaking of Reddit, there was a post that came up this week from Admiral Andre, and it's called Universe of Wonder, My First Year with KSP. Quote, 1 year ago, on July the 22nd, 2013, I purchased Kerbal Space Program. What follows here is an account of my Kerbal story, to be preserved online as both tribute to Squad for creating and cultivating the Kerbal universe, and to my fellow travelers on this journey, the community of which I am a part. May you all prosper infinitely and never lose your sense of wonder. You know what? Now that's two things that we have to say when we see each other. You know, Vulcans have live long and prosper.
Yeah.
What do we have? We have, may you always have a star to steer by and enough fuel to get you home. And now we have, may you all prosper infinitely and never lose your sense of wonder.
May you always have stars and fuel.
Oh, you're shortening it?
Yeah, it's both. Start.
What we can do, like when we see each other, we can do the okay sign.
Yeah.
And then we just go, stars and fuel. We know what we mean.
Yeah, there we go.
We know what we mean.
It's kind of like in Boy Scouts, they have the Scout motto, and then the oath, and then the law, and it's like, how many of these things are we gonna have to say?
Yeah, we either say stars and fuel or prosper and wonder.
Yeah.
Okay, continuing now. Admiral Andre, my first year with KSP. Quote, I first heard of KSP when I saw videos about it popping up on YouTube, but never paid much attention to them or even watched them. My very first thought was, how could a space program game ever be fun, since it must involve complex concepts and math, and therefore be extremely tedious and dry? And what do I always say at this point? Wrong! The year that has passed has seen me achieve things that at first seemed impossible, becoming part of the best gaming community that ever existed. In closing, I shall add that in reply to a KSP tweet asking, how does one Kerbal? I proudly offer the following. To Kerbal means to persevere with a lightness of spirit and a gladness of mind. To Kerbal is to find the master within. Now we have three things we have to say. Anyway, that's Admiral Andre. You can read that on Reddit. It's called Universe of Wonder, my first year with KSP. And Andre, thanks for letting us read that. And I think that wraps it up for Mission Briefing.
That's the end.
That's the end. Well, you know what that means. And now, another edition of As the Kerbin Turns.
Honey, I'm home.
Hello, dear. How was your day?
Oh, same as always. I shoved a pencil through somebody's eye and then threatened to blow up a hospital. Say, did I ever tell you how I got these scars?
Tune in next time for another edition of As the Kerbin Turns. Oh,
Yeah, all right. Woo.
Yay. Hey, and that even ties into our theme.
Yeah.
Yeah, why so serious? Yeah, but I digress for this week. We're talking about Batman. And Batman, I think it was this month or this week, just had his 75th birthday. Yeah. And we wanted to talk a little bit. Why are you laughing?
Well, it's because, we exchanged an email saying, what do you want to do the digress on this week?
Right.
And I couldn't think of anything. So I was like, what do you want to do for a digress this week? And it was a one-word email, Batman.
Batman. I'm Batman.
So I was like, okay.
Sure, why not? Anything in particular
So
about
are we
Batman?
doing like just Batman period or?
Yeah, well, what I was thinking is let's talk a little bit about the legacy of Batman. Let's talk about our focus is going to be on the Christopher Nolan Batman films.
Okay.
But obviously we're going to expand out because there's a lot of other Batman to talk about.
Yeah.
You know, Batman, part of the reason that he's here 75 years later is that every era has kind of had its own Batman.
Uh-huh.
And I think part of the reason that he's lasted this long is he's malleable. You can make him fit whatever era he needs to fit.
Yeah. There are certain heroes that are kind of hard to tailor to that.
Right.
Like, Captain America.
Yeah.
They can always say he was frozen, but they're always going to have, if he's going to be in present times, they always have to extend the amount of time he's frozen every iteration they do.
Well, I mean, think about like the Phantom or the Shadow.
Yeah.
These are characters that, yes, you can still go find iterations of them, but in terms of having a hold on the popular consciousness, it's not there.
Yeah.
Whereas Batman, who has a lot of those same elements,
It's gained a lot of timelessness.
yes. And I think it's because Batman is able to mold and shape depending on the era. I grew up on the Adam West Batman.
Yeah.
And as a kid, I thought it was deadly serious. It wasn't until I was an adult that I realized how camp and tongue-in-cheek it was. I know Frank Miller has said that the Adam West TV show Batman was an embarrassment to him, and that was part of what he was thinking about when he did Dark Knight Returns. Well, I agree in the sense that iteration of Batman was not the traditional Batman.
Yeah.
But it kept him alive. It kept him popular during that period of history.
Until something else could take up the mantle.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at all the different comic books, look at the different movies, look at all the different styles that he's gone through, and in a way, they all kind of work.
Yeah.
I mean, now I would argue the Schumacher Batman. Now, but you know what? For all I know, and don't get me wrong, I am not defending the Schumacher Batmans because those were, boy, I mean, if you kill the franchise for 10 years, I mean, there's kind of hard to argue that there's any merit there. But the Schumacher Batmans at a different time may have been more popular. I don't know.
Yeah, there's it's funny because you could find somebody that likes Batman, and you're like, well, do you like the Batman from Dark Knight Returns, or do you like the Bruce Timm kind of Batman?
Right.
And they're like, oh, I like both, and they're completely different, but they're willing to like them both equally, and it's not just because it's Batman. I like anything Batman. Batmite, cool. It's like you bring in anything silly and stupid, and it's like, oh, it has a bat on it. It's cool.
Yeah. Okay.
They just have merits for liking all the ones that they like, and there are approachable ones for different audiences. Like there's a kids version of Batman. Like there was the cartoon recently, The Batman.
Yeah.
And
for the first time, really, we have two extremely good Batman video games.
Yeah.
Arkham Asylum and Arkham City.
Now
I say that not having played the third one.
Yeah, I haven't touched that one.
Yeah, but I know that Asylum and City were both extremely good.
Yeah.
But again, that's Batman fitting in. One thing that I think is, I have expressed this theory before, and I've actually had people kind of poo-poo at me about saying this. But I think the reason that the Nolan Batman trilogy or the Christopher Nolan Batman films were so successful was they very much captured the zeitgeist of the time. Now, bear with me here. Batman Begins came out about, I think, 4 years after 9/11. The idea behind that movie is that somebody can suffer a traumatic blow and rebuild themselves and fight back.
Yeah.
And I think that very much tied into the mindset at the time.
Yeah.
I think when The Dark Knight came out, that was right at the beginning of the big 2008 financial meltdown. It kind of felt like the whole world was just in chaos.
Yeah.
And then along comes this face, this, kind of demented clown face.
Yeah, it's like manifestation.
Yeah, and the idea that there was actually this controlling force behind it. And I have talked to you about how Batman and Joker are really two sides of the same coin. Well, then you look at The Dark Knight Rises, which came out, we were out of our great economic downturn, but there was a lot of disconnect in terms of people feeling like the system was fair. There was a feeling of, the haves have it all and the have-nots have nothing.
Yeah.
And that movie ties into that as well. I had expressed this theory to some people, and they had kind of go, you're reading way too much into Batman movies. And then I read somewhere that was kind of what Christopher Nolan was thinking, or that they were kind of thinking that. So I was like, see, see, and they were like, that didn't mean anything.
Yeah, I'll get told that sometimes whenever I'm grabbing a movie and I'm just like ripping it to shreds. Like, I have a color theory on Dredd, and I told them, I was like, oh yeah, and then this happens. They're like, I'm pretty sure those are just colors. And I was like, no way, dude. No way.
Judge Dredd movie with Carl Urban?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, I get that. There was something you pointed out to me about The Dark Knight, which I had not caught until you said it. But do you remember you made the point about, despite being an agent of chaos, Joker wants to always be in control?
Yeah, he wants to be in control of what he's doing.
Yeah. Do you remember what you said keyed that for you?
Yeah. There was the scenes where he had the handheld cam and he was like interviewing, interrogating people. And there was a scene where, you know, he's talking to the guy, and he's in the guy's tied to the chair, and he won't look at him. And he's like, look at me. And then he just yells it, and he yells it in a completely different tone.
At me.
Yeah, it sounds almost nothing like him.
Right.
You know, it's because he wasn't able to control that. He wasn't cooperating with his plan.
Well, when you said that, it made me realize that there's a companion scene to that as well. Do you remember Coleman Reese goes on TV and says, "I know who Batman is, and if he doesn't turn himself in, I'm gonna tell everybody." What does the Joker do at that point? The minute somebody else horns in on his action, he says, "Okay, you know what? Never mind about Batman revealing himself. Kill this guy."
Yeah, I don't want him to be the one who does it.
Yeah, I'm the agent of chaos, not him.
Yeah.
I give, and I've said this before, the Batman movies, by and large, defy logic.
Yeah.
There are so many logical flaws in those movies, but you have to let them go because I read them as metaphors. I look at, in many ways, I see contemporary Batman as a distant cousin to old stories like the Odyssey and the Iliad, where you have these larger-than-life heroic people. The Odyssey, Odysseus, is the only person who can draw back this bow and shoot an arrow through the
axe heads, right?
Yeah, the axe heads. I mean, the stories aren't meant to be taken literally. They're meant to be, this is a hyper-realized ideal of masculinity. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying the Batman movies are about masculinity, but it is a hyper-realized version of these different themes.
Yeah.
The light and the dark. They are very much about good versus evil, light versus dark. There's a lot of themes that are playing out because, for example, all right, the idea that nobody can figure out that Bruce Wayne is Batman is laughable.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. In the very first movie, when they introduced the Tumbler, okay, Lucius Fox says, we designed this for the army. Mm-hmm. It was supposed to pull a bridge across a river, but we could never get it to, we couldn't get the bridge to work, but the Tumbler works fine. There was a team of engineers working on this thing. There were people that fabricated the parts for this thing. There were people that built this thing. The first time the Tumbler showed up on the streets, some engineer out there went, hey.
Yeah. I worked on that.
I worked on
that. I never got the royalties for that.
Yeah. That would have tied him. Also, I mean, just from a detective's point of view, think about this. Who could Batman possibly be? Well, okay, it's somebody roughly this size and build. It's somebody who obviously has a lot of resources. So he's got to be somebody who's wealthy. Well, let's see. Who fits that category? Bruce Wayne. What does Wayne Enterprises do? They do all this high-tech military hardware. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
It's real hard to
yeah, there's a lot of suspension of disbelief.
Yeah, and then in the big Tumbler chase scene, when the helicopter loses him, he turns off the road and he drives along the dirt, and then he shoots through the waterfall into the cave. Follow the tracks.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea that the police couldn't, like, you know, in broad daylight the next day go, okay, well, here's where he smashed through the wall. Here's the tire tracks. Kind of hard to miss. Let's just follow them. Hey, we're at the base of the cliff where Wayne Manor is. Gee.
Yeah. Fancy that.
Yeah. Imagine that. Dark Knight Rises. Would the CIA really put 3 people on their airplane without taking off their hoods?
Yeah.
No. Let me ask you this. The Tim Burton Batman. How do you think that holds up?
You mean holds up to the time that it was made? Or?
No, today. Because, I mean, at the time, it was groundbreaking.
Yeah, at the time it was groundbreaking because back then comic book movies did not have any serious element to them.
Yeah.
You were guaranteed fight scenes, jokes,
And silliness.
and you were guaranteed to see whatever comic book character was in the title.
Right.
And that was pretty much all you were given.
Well, I remember when Michael Keaton was announced that he was going to be Batman. And there's some parallels if you look at it. When Tim Burton was announced that he was going to do Batman, what were his 2 films at that point? Pee-wee's Big Adventure, Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
So the idea that the guy that made those two movies was going to make Batman was kind of hard to swallow anyway.
Oh boy, here we go.
And then Mr. Mom, there was a song. Do you know that song Wild Wild West?
Yeah.
Okay. There was somebody had made a parody song, and the lyrics were, I'll be watching Adam West.
Mm-hmm.
You know, nobody wants to see Mr. Mom in a cape. That was actually a line from the song.
Yeah.
And, I mean, there was this huge fan outcry. How dare you make Michael Keaton Batman? And then once they saw the movie, it was like, of course, we were with you all along.
Uh-huh.
I had asked you earlier how well the Tim Burton Batman holds up. The parts that work, I think, still hold up very well.
Yeah. If it's...
The parts that don't work, I think, have gotten worse over the years.
Uh-huh.
Note to filmmakers, if you want a film to have a shelf life beyond a few years, don't put Prince songs in it, because that just immediately dates the movie. Batman Begins, Dark Knight Rises, they can exist kind of in this quasi, I mean, it's obviously 21st century America, but the date isn't 100% nailed down.
Yeah.
And visually, the original Batman had a pseudo-Gothic look. Some of the characters dressed like they were out of the 40s. Some of them were contemporary. The vehicle styles were kind of all over the map. So visually, the movie could have existed in that nebulous zone.
Yeah.
But they stuck Prince in there, and it tied it right to the late 80s. But yeah, the parts of the Burton Batman... you know that was done during a writer's strike, which is why the movie, about 2/3 of the way through, the plot just disappears. Mm-hmm. You remember that whole thing with the reporter and the corruption and all that stuff he was looking into? Do you notice how that all just vanished?
Yeah.
The third act of that movie, the entire parade scene, to me is just painful. And it was painful to watch at the time. The thing I could never understand in that movie was the Joker, who was known to be a murderer, goes on television and says, hey, everybody, at a certain time, I'm going to be at a certain place on a certain date.
Yeah.
Not one police officer in sight. I mean, he told him exactly where he was going to be, and they weren't there. And then, here comes the stupid bat plane, and it gets shot down with a handgun, and it goes up and it makes the bat symbol with the moon. And I mean, that whole, until Batman smashes into the cathedral, from the beginning of the parade scene until that,
just close your eyes.
That movie has gone so far off the rails. And that is something that as you get older, as it ages, that scene becomes progressively worse and worse. Batman Returns also had script problems. They were kind of writing it as they went, which is why it's like 3 different movies being thrown together. One of my big concerns when I heard about the Christopher Nolan Batman Returns, unfortunately, the Penguin was not a good villain. He wasn't particularly clever. None of his plans ever worked out.
Yeah.
He was easily led.
He
wasn't very strong. I mean, the minute he got into a fist fight with Batman, it was like, pushed him over and he fell over.
Yeah, he should have had half or none of the screen time.
Well, honestly, what I think it would have been a better movie, because Max Schreck was clearly the bad guy. What they really, and I give Michelle Pfeiffer major props for that movie. She really did, even though they tossed out the Selena Kyle origin story, she really created a memorable Catwoman. That, to me, would have been a very complex and a very good movie. Instead, what you got is a movie that seems to be Max Schreck is the bad guy. No, it's the Penguin. No, it's Catwoman.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes off in these weird directions.
Yeah, they kind of suffer from X-Men syndrome. Like all the X-Men movies, keep throwing characters in.
Right.
And
when I heard that Batman Begins was going to have 2 villains, that's where I got nervous, because the strength of the original Batman was Jack Nicholson, the Joker.
Yeah.
Heroes are only as good as their villains. And when they found themselves without the Joker, it's like somebody said, well, since we don't have one good villain, let's have 2. Well, 2 half-a-villains don't make a good one villain.
And that's a reason. That's another reason characters like Batman have like stood such a test of time. Amazing villains.
Sure.
I mean, you don't see many people getting all kind of pumped about, Weather Wizard.
Yeah.
Like like the Flash has some of the worst villains ever.
Right, yeah.
And it's like, oh,
Green Lantern.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard for them to, because not many people remember their villains, but everybody, like, they could list a ton of Batman villains.
Again, Batman has survived for 75 years because he's able to be each generation. And I have a fond place in my heart for Adam West Batman. I can the whole scene with the bomb on the dock.
Yeah.
To this day, I can watch and just howl with laughter. Because as silly as it seems on the surface, it's actually very well done.
Yeah.
Because here's Batman. I mean, he's got a stereotypical Acme bomb from the Warner Brothers cartoon. It's a big bowling ball with a wick sticking out of it. Mm-hmm. He's running around a dock. You've got a parade of 3 people for no apparent reason that are walking around. You've got a lady with a baby carriage. You've got nuns.
And then some ducks.
And instead of running away from this guy who's got a bomb in his hands, they're like converging on him. Every time he rounds the corner, there they are again. And he's trying so hard to get away from them, and then he just pops out that classic line. Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb. So, anyway.
So, in the Batman reboot, what is a villain you really want to see? And it could be one that's already been shown.
Good question. If done correctly, I would like to have seen the Penguin. Or possibly the Riddler.
Mine's the Riddler.
Yeah.
Because to me, in anything I've seen, like any of the comics or cartoons, he's like the Mysterio of the DC universe. Whenever he is involved, the writing is usually like top notch because they have to come up with really complex, puzzly kind of stories, and you have to figure it out with them. Every time the Riddler was a key point in like the Batman animated series, there were always riddles, and you had to try to figure them out. And like you had to try and think along, like what is the next stage, what is the next plan, and so the Joker is like he's pretty much everybody's favorite villain almost all the time. So
he's the id unleashed.
Yeah, so you need to say like, what is your second favorite Batman villain?
Right.
So yeah, mine's a Riddler.
I was praying that the third Nolan Batman would have Catwoman, because I felt like each film had challenged him differently, and I thought it would be nice to have the last one where there's a kindred spirit, because Batman and Selina Kyle, or Batman and Catwoman, have always had a very complicated love-hate relationship throughout the books. Given how isolated Bruce Wayne had become, I wanted to see how those two would play off each other. And I think Anne Hathaway did a great job as Catwoman. I thought she did great. I think Tom Hardy was a fantastic Bane. Mm-hmm. I have a hard time looking at Inception, though, and Tom Hardy.
Oh, yeah.
And going, that's the same guy that's Bane.
Uh-huh. He's going to be Mad Max, too.
I know. That'll be good.
Yeah.
That'll be good. I enjoyed the Mad Max movies, too. Well, I guess let's go ahead and wrap it up for But I Digress. Did you have a last comment or anything you wanted to say that we haven't covered?
Do I look like the kind of guy who has a plan?
You're a dog chasing a car. You wouldn't know what to do if you caught one. Well, let's move on now. We did the last couple of podcasts. We tossed out a contest question, and we made it too dadgum hard the first time.
Yeah, so we gave out some more clues for the second one, and we finally have some people who
got it right,
got the answer.
Yeah, of the answers that we received, 2 people got it right. And we also picked, there were a couple that got it wrong.
Yeah, but they're honorable mentions.
But they were so creative with how they got it wrong that we wanted to share those. Let's start with the how they got it wrongs. Okay? I'll do the first one, you do the second one, okay? This is from John Madsen, and we had read his email earlier in the program. At the end of the email, he said, on to the trivia question. My best guess last week was 2 words instead of 1, so I didn't submit it. However, for your entertainment, my guess is Khloe Kardashian. I wasn't sure why you would pick this, but here's my logic.
I'm not sure either.
Oh, it actually, once you see the logic,
Okay.
I mean, he
All right,
even
all right,
says
just-
it's a stretch.
all right, just lay it
but
on me.
I can see where it comes from.
Okay.
Firefly plus cannibalism plus burst into flames becomes glowbug plus eat flesh plus combustion, which becomes
course.
glow plus eat plus combustion, which becomes glow eat combustion, which becomes Khloe Kardashian. He says lots of possibilities, but my official guess is Khloe Kardashian.
Yeah. Well,
Wow.
nice.
And I never thought I would utter the words Khloe Kardashian in my life. but
Yeah,
I have,
especially not on Kerbalcast.
yeah. She who must not be named.
Okay, our other one is from Shay. The answer to the 10th podcast is ISS, the International Space Station. I, because Firefly is an insect. S, because cannibalism is a sickness. And S, because burst into flames is also known as spontaneous combustion. That's
But
pretty
you
good.
have to give him credit.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's some good detective work
of the
going on
answers
in
we
this.
got, because some of them were just off the mark.
Yeah.
But the thought that went into it, it was like, okay, I see it. Okay, so the two people that got it right, tell me.
Okay, the first one is John Schley, and he says, when I first heard the contest regarding the 3 clues, Firefly, cannibalism, burn to the ground, first I thought of the Firefly show, specifically the Reavers, since they are cannibals and tend to burn everything to the ground.
I honestly, when you said Firefly and cannibals, that was the first thing I thought.
Yeah,
of. Somebody was going to say Reavers.
Whenever I ran the clues by him, he was like, Reavers, and I was like, no. Second time you talked about the contest, the moment you said it was specifically rated as the curb and turns, and each clue was a letter, it was easy. 10-5-2, which is a simple cipher, J-E-B, Jeb, for Jebediah.
Jebediah.
And our other one was from
And
Run.
this is a master of simplicity right
yeah,
here.
From Run Phil Run, Jeb, nailed it.
Yeah.
So
Jeb. Nailed it. So since we have obviously one prize to give out,
yeah,
and we have 2 people that got it right. So what we've decided to do in the Batman theme, we're going to do the whole Two-Face thing. I have a quarter. Heads is who, and tails is who.
oh yeah, you're gonna put this on me. I'm gonna be the reason. Like
Somebody
I
bombs.
hate Nas. He said I was heads.
He said I was heads.
We're gonna say John Schley is tails. Run Phil Run is heads.
Okay. Now we're going to do the Two-Face here, and we're going to flip a coin.
Yeah.
And we're going to see who wins. Okay. Now what did we say? John Shea is tails. John
Yeah.
Schley. I'm
yeah.
sorry.
Run Phil Run is heads.
Okay. I'll remember that.
Yeah.
Okay. Here we go. Oh, I dropped it. Let's do that again. That's pretty bad. I can't
Yeah.
even catch a stupid quarter. Okay, you ready?
Ready.
All right, here we go. Okay.
And here's the moment of truth. Tails.
Tails.
John Schley.
Congratulations,
Congratulations, John Schley. And thank you, Run Phil Run, for entering and for having the correct answer. Also, thank you to everyone else who entered and for your creative answers. Also, remember, one of our submissions that got us this was our the Floating Dead. Mm-hmm. That actually came from the
Yeah.
contest too.
John. That's true. That's
So
true.
we'll try to have some contests in
Okay.
the future whenever we manage to scrounge up.
Now we're giving out a $20 Steam gift card. Is that
Uh-huh.
right? Okay.
Yep.
How are we doing this?
You are going to get an email, and it's going to contain a code and also a picture of the code, so you have some redundancy there.
Okay.
And then you just enter the code, and it goes into your Steam wallet.
Okay. Well, congratulations, and also a big thank you to everybody who entered. We especially love the creative, the ones that got it wrong.
The creative conclusions.
Well, that wraps it up for episode 12 of Kerbalcast, known lovingly as Holy Senior Citizen Batman. A reminder, as always, you can get in touch with us by our email address. It's kerbalpodcast@gmail.com.
You can also find us on Twitter at Kerbalcast.
Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, or you can download it directly.
From kerbalpodcast.libsyn.com.
And we do want to thank some folks. First of all, our listeners, as always,
Everyone who sent in any letters.
and that includes our regular contributors.
And all of the music that you heard is provided by Professor Soap. You can find him at facebook.com/Professor Soap.
I am your LMP, that's Lunar Module Pilot Biff Aldrin. As always, our Command Module Pilot, CMP.
Nostromo.
And today, we're going to close out our program with a saying that was suggested to us. May you always have a star to steer by and enough fuel to get you home. We'll see you next time. Until then, happy Kerbling.
We read the crew report where your letters are read by us, the readers of the letters.
You're the writers, we're the readers.
I
Cough
seriously,
medicine, I'm telling
I
you.
feel like a stoner right now. I'm like,
Cough
"Dude,
medicine. Oh, baby, speaking of polishing.
Say, did I ever tell you how I got these scars? Did I ever tell you how I got these scars? Did I ever tell you how I got these scars? Did I ever tell you how I got these scars? Did I ever tell you how I got these scars? Did I ever tell you how I got these scars?
Say, did I ever tell you how I got these scars?
Did I ever tell you how I got these scars? Did I ever tell you how I got these scars? Did I ever tell you how I got these scars?
Hey, and apparently that was our But I Digress segment. so. See you next week.
Yeah, but I digress.
Happy Kerbling.
Has been. All of the music that you hear is provided by Professor Soap.
What was that?
You
Want to take another run at that?
Oh, so,
May you always have a steer to star by and enough fuel to get you home.
wait, what?